Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. Happy to fill in. Chad out on vacation. He'll be back later on this week. I have to start the show with something that happened on Friday because it's been debated all weekend long. The conversations have been non-ending, never-ending. I don't know what the right thing to say is, but Donald Trump, President Trump, gave a couple speeches over the weekend. He talked about a lot of different things. One thing he spoke about is something that I don't know how you'd avoid. Personally, in my opinion, I don't know how you'd avoid the conversations about protesting, the conversations about what is way more than protesting in a lot of places, riots, as determined by Portland several different days in a row. And by the way, we'll get to Portland later on. That's not being discussed anywhere near as much as I think it should be. But the president spoke about a lot of different things and then was immediately taken to task by people that disagree with some of his points. Let's hear from the president just to get context for all this. And then I have to play what to me is the most surreal audio that I've heard in a little bit from Tammy Duckworth, a name I didn't think I'd talk about much when filling in on the show here for Chad, and not a person that I thought I'd highlight often. But when you start to talk about different statues and what they mean to different people and what should or shouldn't be reconsidered, George Washington is a name that not many of us, I don't care what political side of the aisle you're on, will get behind as a statue or a person that's too problematic to celebrate in this country. And when I get to Tammy Duckworth in just a few minutes, apparently doesn't necessarily think that. But let's focus on the debate, the conversation. The president spoke a couple times. People had feelings. Let's hear part of that.
1776 represented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph of not only spirit, but of wisdom, philosophy, and reason. And yet, as we meet here tonight, there is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children.
Okay. That is the first of many statements that will be called gaslighting by a lot of places over the weekend, a lot of places even today. Are there strong messages within that statement on July 4th? Yeah, there are strong messages in that statement, but I think there's a lot of people that have a widespread feeling as to whether or not a lot of what's going on right now is productive. And I don't mean the conversations. There's conversations that I think need to happen in the wake of things like the death of George Floyd that open a lot of eyes. These conversations have to happen the correct way. They happen with politicians. They happen with city leaders. They happen with law enforcement officials. The conversations are very different than public destruction and what a lot of people would determine as rioting, vandalism, all kinds of things that exist. And we saw all over the weekend, including the tearing down of at least one Columbus statue. But let's continue with the president, because again, as we listen to all this, and I get it, the opinion of Donald Trump, President Trump right now, appears to be all over the place, even on the Republican side of the conversation. It seems that a lot of people have differing opinions, although the president did tweet out that 96% of people approve, as far as Republicans go, approve of the job he is doing. But here, let's get back to some of the speech that's continues to be talked about. I don't know when it stopped being talked about, but here we go.
Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them.
Okay, I have a bunch more of the president speaking on July 4th and over the weekend on the 3rd at Mount Rushmore. A lot of different things that he said, and many people have now accused him of not taking an opportunity to bring the country together. That's what you're going to hear more so than anything else, more so than the gaslighting, more so than, he's being irresponsible or whatever it is that you might be told he is not taking an opportunity to unite our nation, and that every president, certainly the most beloved president by all of the news world, it seems, Barack Obama, would have been totally different. And of course, then that means that Joe Biden, if he gave any sort of remarks on July 4th, would be uniting in his conversation. Well, conveniently, I actually have Joe Biden and the message he put up on social media, on Twitter on July 4th, and his call to action, if that's what it is, and his comments about the fact that our country is not what I guess we all think it is. Here is the more, and I use air quotes. I know nobody can see them because this is radio, so I'm doing air quotes. Here's the uniting conversation from Joe Biden, the one that so many people are deriding the president for not having.
Our country was founded on an idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We've never lived up to it.
Okay, we've never lived up to what we created our country for. Cool, Joe. Really uniting. Keep going.
Jefferson himself didn't. He held slaves. Women were excluded. But once proposed, it was an idea that couldn't be constrained. It survived the ravages of the Civil War, the dogs of Bull Connor, the assassination of Martin Luther King, and more than 200 years of systemic racism. And just weeks ago, the murder of George Floyd. Through it all, these words have gnawed at our conscience and pulled us towards justice. American history is no fairy tale. It's been a constant push and pull between the two parts of our character. The idea that all men and women, all people are created equal, and the racism that has torn us apart.
Okay, and the racism that has torn us apart. Thank you, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, for your comments on July 4th. There's more from Sleepy Joe, too, but I think that it's impossible for anyone, whether it's Joe Biden or President Donald Trump, to not talk about civil unrest and the continued conversations, the destruction of statues, conversations to ask for things like George Washington statues to be rethought, to be removed, or to celebrate him less. Christopher Columbus, not an American hero, but a hero to many, is someone that we need to rethink quite a bit on. There's so many conversations. How could you avoid it? I don't get the conversation. I'll never get it. The criticism. If you want to criticize the president of the United States, the way you need to do it is a way that doesn't seem completely disingenuous when you look at anything else going on, when you look at any other coverage, any other conversations had by other people. To deride the president for talking about what's going on in our country on July 4th is surreal to me. And nothing better captures this, the way in which the approach is coming from the left than this conversation with Tammy Duckworth. To me, it's great because the first question out of the mouth, and I think this is a good question actually out of the mouth of one of our talking heads on one of the news stations is do you support the George Washington reconsideration movement? The saying that he is one of many problematic figures that exist within our country. And I think that just a quick poll of most Americans would say that they do not agree that George Washington deserves to be in any part of this conversation. But I like the way that at first she dodges and goes to something else. She derides the president, as I said, like everyone else does, for even talking about that. And not, by the way, here's Tammy's idea for what should have been on the July 4th docket for the things you should have talked about during the speech. Coronavirus and how deadly and scary it is. That would have been an uplifting, celebratory, holiday message from Tammy. But here's part of that conversation.
I know that you support changing the name of military bases named after Confederate leaders. But there are leaders like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson who were slave owners. And some people are demanding that their monuments come down, too. So in your view, where does it end? Should statues, for example, of George Washington come down?
Well, let me just say that we should start off by having a national dialogue on it at some point. But right now we're in the middle of a global pandemic.
Oh, my God. Oh, I'm sorry. I can get back to that. But I hate the shift and how quick it happens. And every time you see it, I don't know if this annoys you as much as it annoys me. But when you have a very straightforward question asked to somebody, anybody, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on, and the shift is immediate. It makes me mad. And maybe it makes me mad because of what I do. I'm a broadcaster, and I know that when you ask a question, you probably want an answer to your question. Or, I mean, if you've ever been in a relationship and you know that maybe you did something wrong or the significant other did something wrong and they don't want to address it, the minute you ask about it, like, hey, what's this? You get a similar response. So let's hear Tammy shift gears, and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to take of this, but okay, here we go.
And one of our countries that are opposed to us. Russia has put a bounty on American troops' heads. What really struck me about the speech that the president gave at Mount Rushmore was that he spent more time worried about honoring dead Confederates than he did talking about the lives of the 130,000 Americans who lost their lives to COVID-19, or by warning Russia off of the bounty they're putting on.
I don't even know what goes through your head if you're someone that's interviewing her right now. You're like, I asked you if you think George Washington's a problematic figure. We're talking about other stuff now, Tammy. How'd that happen?
Americans' heads. I mean, his priorities are all wrong here. He should be talking about what we're going to do to overcome this pandemic. What are we going to do to push Russia back? And instead, he had no time for that. He spent all his time talking about dead traitors.
Dead traitors. Cool. That's part of the conversation. Even though he did not just talk about Confederate leaders, he talked about quite a few of our past heroes standing at Mount Rushmore. Quite a few heroes on Mount Rushmore, by the way. Are they dead traitors to you too somehow, Tammy? And I love the fact that the question does try to get back on track, and it just continues to not work out.
That might be true, but George Washington, I don't think anybody would call him a traitor. And there are moves by some to remove statues of him. Is that a good idea?
I think we should listen to everybody. I think we should listen to the argument there. But remember that the president at Mount Rushmore was standing on ground that was stolen from Native Americans who had...
No, I can't do anymore, Tammy. I can't handle anymore, Tammy. This is the scariest statement you will hear. And I got to be honest about it. This is the scariest statement you'll hear from politicians that are preaching listening. And I believe in conversations. I believe in change. I believe in acknowledging things that are problems and doing things to fix them that make sense within the systems that already exist within our country. Doing things like going to your politicians at a local, state, national, whatever level you need, federal level, to have conversations, to have things change. The president signed an executive order on policing. He signed an executive order to try to make things better. These are the ways these conversations go. But here's the scariest statement any politician can say.
I think we should listen to everybody.
Everybody. We'll just listen to everybody. Anybody that's got an idea at all, even if it's George Washington and how bad of a guy he was, we got to listen to that person. Let's listen. Let's do things that they ask us to do. And by the way, one last real quick thing. I got to take a break in a second. There was one human in all this that I didn't know if we'd hear from him or what would happen as far as the world goes. Colin Kaepernick is all over the news as a person that didn't play in the NFL for quite a while. Obviously, stood against something that now a lot of Americans think made sense to stand against. The way in which he did it maybe made a lot of people uncomfortable. He's going to continue to make people uncomfortable. I've been curious about him quite a bit recently and how he'll look, because NFL teams have talked about signing him again, saying that they may have a need for him. On July 4th, Colin Kaepernick tweeted, "Black people have been dehumanized, brutalized, criminalized, and terrorized by America for centuries and are expected to join your commemoration of independence." Independence in air quotes, by the way, for the 4th of July independence celebration. "While you enslaved our ancestors. We reject your celebration of white supremacy and look forward to liberation for all." That is Colin Kaepernick, a uniting message yet again for sure of people that are on a certain side of the political. I can't fathom the world in which we live. July 4th. I thought the thing I was going to be most frustrated at is that my neighbors seemed like they bought 6,000 fireworks. But the truth is, the only thing I could handle or not handle all weekend long is this constant conversation about how terrible everyone in the entire country is and how all of us need to rethink everything we do. And the only conversation we should be having is one where we listen to anyone and everyone, no matter what they feel, or even if they're being a riot, protest, whatever they are. It doesn't matter. If they destroy a statue of somebody somewhere, that's okay. We just got to accept it. That's the way that you're accepting, or the way that you're, part of the help, part of the cause in 2020. I don't understand. All right, quick break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in for Chad Benson.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy to be here with you guys today. I missed some big news just a few moments ago. I can't believe I didn't talk about this sooner in the show, but Kanye West is at least announcing via Twitter that he's running for president. He might have missed a bunch of deadlines in states to be an independent candidate. That's probably going to be part of a problem. Kanye, if you do try to run right now, just because you feel like it, Twitter's not the only thing you got to do. You do have to add other things to you probably want to have a team of some kind. I don't know. I'm not telling you what to do, Yeezy, but you want to maybe figure it out. Texas, North Carolina, New York, Maine, New Mexico, Indiana, they're already out. You missed those qualifying deadlines to be an independent candidate there. Might want to get some other places in early because there's a lot of places that are coming up right now. But Kanye West, he's going to be president. This is how it was handled, by the way, and this is just a real quick mention on ABC News, Good Morning America. This I thought was kind of interesting.
Another name getting into the race for president, and this is a big name, but a surprising name, possibly.
Kanye West has thrown his hat in the ring, TJ. He's been talking about running for president for a while. He's a little late to the game. He's got to get some kind of program together, but I think really these are very serious times, serious issues. The country is facing some very significant problems. It's unlikely he's going to find much traction, but you never know.
I can't believe that it's taken with that grain of seriousness. You never know. And that is true, though. You do never know what could happen in a political year. I think that the bigger problem is the fact that he can't be on a bunch of ballots places. But that's, hey, again, I don't want to tell Yeezy what to do. I'm just most curious what his entrance song would be at any of his rallies, because obviously the president all the time uses music, and then artists, I guess, are not happy with it. And by the way, Kanye, huge fan of President Trump, obviously, as you remember, we talked about just a little while ago. And yet people are afraid that Kanye being part of this race would somehow hurt Joe Biden, that votes would go that way. So that's all interesting to me. But what would Yeezy's song be if he were to run for president for real and start giving rallies? I don't know who would go to the rallies. I don't know how big the attendance would be. I mean, he is famous, so I don't know. But there's all kind of options out there. There's certainly some of the less than stellar ones, the ones you can't play on this very radio station. Some of the biggest ones that he certainly enjoys, Heartless. He's got a bunch of them out there. So, and now obviously his last CD was a little bit more religious. Maybe that too. I don't know. I don't know what Kanye West will do, but apparently, and Kim Kardashian, by the way, I love that news stories mentioned her, that she's in with it. This is what it takes in 2020 to make the news as a presidential candidate. You got to tweet out that you're running, and then your wife tweets an American flag. Hey, there we go. Country fix 2020, Kanye West. Chad Benson Show, Craig Collins filling in.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad Benson back later this week. Let's cover some of the horrible things that we saw over the weekend. I laugh just because, sadly, there were so many horrible things that I can't even fathom the fact that on a holiday weekend, the way in which I earnestly want to have a conversation on the radio about what we saw is that a lot of violence, a lot of protesting, a lot of things that are way beyond protesting, certainly not peaceful protesting, took place. There was stuff going on in Baltimore, including the removal of a Christopher Columbus statue that got chucked into the water there. And the mayor in Baltimore, by the way, Bernard C. Jack Young, has been saying that this is kind of okay. I mean, I think he's in some ways said that we probably need to stop the violence and the destruction of things. But he also said we understand people's frustrations. What the city wants to do is serve as a national model, particularly with how we've done with protesting. We've seen people who have taken to the streets. We support them. We are going to continue to support them. That's a full stop. That is part of his comments. And he's also talking about, at times, what he thinks is, and makes sense to him, the re-examination taking place nationally and globally around some of these monuments and statues that may represent different things to different people, also quoting him, or his spokesperson, speaking to the Baltimore Sun. A lot of stuff going on in the world, though, and some of it really horrible, at least going on here in the United States. An 8-year-old died in Atlanta during a shooting. An 8-year-old girl was shot and killed on the 4th of July after at least 2 people in a crowd of armed people opened fire on a car she was riding in. Police identified the girl, and obviously the family has been notified and involved. It's just a tragic story. Atlanta mayor called for justice during an emotional news conference just yesterday, saying that the grieving girl's mother really impacted her. Of course, that happened. The shooting happened near the Wendy's restaurant where a man by the name of where Rashard Brooks, the other person that we talked about quite a bit, the other African-American man who was killed by Atlanta police on June 12th. So this happens very close to that area. The fast food outlet was later burned, and the area has become a site for frequent demonstrations against police brutality, according to the Atlanta AP. Authorities said the mother had attempted to drive through illegally placed barricades in the area when the vehicle came under fire. Terrible. You shot and killed a baby, the mayor said, according to Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and there wasn't just one shooter, there were at least two. This is a tragic story and one of many where violence is going to create a lot of problems. If you have not peaceful protesting, if you have other things taking place, then you have people trying to get out of areas or into areas, or I don't even know what, we're going to have other moments like this that are very scary and very tragic to see happening. And then still, you hear mayors, you hear politicians on a local level doing things like supporting some of what's going on the streets, supporting and saying that we need to have conversations when the people who are acting these ways are not always looking for conversations of any kind. And case in point, I think we go to Portland and we see what has been continued days of determining what starts out as peaceful protesting is rioting. Police have to declare rioting on an almost daily basis there. The city has seen 38 straight days of unrest. Police in Portland declared rioting Saturday night at 11 o'clock. They declared it again at 1 a.m. on Sunday. This is just a thing. The protesters assemble in the area, or I guess in this case, I'd call them rioters. They're peaceful for a while. Police are there. And then eventually maybe even police disperse for a bit, but have to come back whenever the violence becomes too much. They're doing all kinds of things like firing off way more than just fireworks. And here, actually, to make this point better than maybe I'm going to make it today, is Mark Morgan. Mark Morgan is the commissioner of the Custom and Border Protection Agency. He gave an interview over the weekend, and here is something he said that I think a lot of people can certainly agree with.
Absolutely, Griff. Early this morning, in fact, I just got this situation report a few minutes ago, is that one of the criminals that were actually trying to assault one of the CBP employees while he was being arrested, the report right now is telling us that a pipe bomb, a fused incendiary device, and a machete was actually discovered during that search.
Peaceful protesting, pipe bomb, machete, things that you have on your person. Here, let's go. At the end of this statement, I think, is what's the most powerful from Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Think about that, Griff. Think about the deadly consequences from these criminal actions. And also, I hope your listeners get out there and see some video. There's a video where a woman is overheard confronting one of the agents there, and she refers to it as, hey, I know this game. I'm on a city sidewalk. There's nothing that you can do. And she goes further and says, why don't you go back where you came from, white boy? That's what this is, Griff. It's a game to them. It's a deadly game, but serious. This is about law and order. We must be united. Where are the local political leaders, Griff, standing up saying this is unconscionable, this is wrong, and these individuals should cease and desist and be arrested? Where are they? Where are they?
Where are the local officials that are trying to get ahead of and against that need to condemn the things going on in a lot of the streets within the United States, a lot of the areas in which protesting becomes far from peaceful, the areas in which statues are getting ripped down and thrown into the ocean, the areas in which little girls are getting shot and killed. I don't understand how we can, and maybe what makes me the most upset is not necessarily just the political leaders, the politicians who I think for a long time, we all know, hide in their corners, hide on their sides of the aisle and get scared whenever they have to take a stand that's against something that they're afraid might not help them get reelected. Although this should be an easy thing for everyone to stand against, that violence and chaos is bad in our country. But as I ask that, maybe the thing that makes me most frustrated, and this is a bad place to get frustrated, is the world of social media right now. Because if you go on there and you look at the supporters of certain movements and the supporters of some of the violence that happens in our country, they say things like, peaceful protesting doesn't work. Peaceful protesting wasn't getting us heard, so this message needs to be given another way. That is a tremendously scary conversation. That is tremendously risky for people in political places to allow for things like that to be said and then enacted on out in our world, in our streets, and then kind of support the overall message of these people doing these violent things. It makes no sense to me, and it will continue to make no sense to me. It makes more sense that Kanye West is running for president than the fact that we have political leaders that won't actually come out and fully condemn some of the things happening on our streets. And just real quick, I guess touch on the statue thing a little more. I understand if there's all different types of individuals that are part of our history, and some of them, when you look into the real world lives that they had, are not the same as others. I understand that there's people that have problems, for lack of a better word. I don't want to call them problematic people that are part of our history, but I understand that. If you wanted to have a conversation with me or someone probably way more valuable than me who can actually get some things changed, that would not involve a machete. That would not involve a pipe bomb. Those are not needed items to get my attention. The attention is yours, I think, for anyone that's looking to have a productive, a meaningful conversation. I think the United States as a whole right now is more aware than they'd ever been of some of the actual problems that may have existed in our society, some things that ping of portions of systematic racism and oppression. I think there's a willingness to talk, but this isn't talking, and it needs to start to be talking, because I just don't know what possibly could be beneficial about the conversations we're having every day about the need to end violence. That's not adding to the message, and it never will add to the message. And for anyone that thinks it will, especially the politicians of the world, I beg you to be more forceful in your condemnations of these things. All right, let's move on. Kimberly Guilfoyle, she's got COVID-19. Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend tested positive. She actually was supposed to be part of the July 4th celebrations, and she didn't go. She is asymptomatic. This is part of a bigger conversation, I think, and one that even the president has been having quite a bit, as to how serious of an illness COVID-19 is. And that's sort of a jam-packed sentence in and of itself, because there's a lot of things that come from the answer to that question. Certainly, there's been people who've lost their lives. A lot of people have lost their lives throughout the world and throughout our country to COVID-19. So to say it's not scary at all would be silly. And certainly, I guess the biggest thing about it, and here's actually maybe my biggest thought on this, is we still don't truly understand it. It's new. It's brand new. It's something that we only have a few months of study on. We don't even actually truly know that the vaccines that we're testing work. We're going to produce them in mass quantities on the hope that they work. But there's been a lot of conversations about whether or not they even work. And so to all that, and to the president saying that 99% of cases are harmless, we've had additional conversations. I think the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, responded to this over the weekend, too. Have a little bit of that audio.
No, I don't even know that it's a generalization. When you start to look at the stats and look at all the numbers that we have, the amount of testing that we have, the vast majority of people are safe from this. When you look at the deaths that we have, if you're over 80 years of age, or if you have three what they call comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, heart issues, then you need to be very, very careful. Outside of that, the risks are extremely low, and the president's right with that, and the facts and the statistics back us up there.
So that was on Fox and Friends this morning. That's Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for the White House. And this conversation is tough. This is probably as hard as anything else to talk about with anybody, as to whether or not that's close to an accurate statement or completely crap statement. And there's reactions all across the aisle. There's certainly a lot of medical professionals who'd say to call it harmless for 99% of people is probably too much. It's certainly, I think the medical professional would not use the word probably. It is extreme in its exaggeration, but at the same time, it is true that a majority of people who get this illness won't be the people that are on ventilators, and the people that are struggling to keep their lives, and the people that lose their lives. A majority of people will get over COVID-19. That's an accurate statement. I'm not trying to tell you to stop wearing a mask in public if you think you need one. I'm just telling you that in and of itself is true. And as I dove into the research more and saw the data, maybe the things that happen to your body after you beat COVID-19, we still don't truly understand it. The best thing you could possibly say, and I think anybody could say, is we've seen a lot of cases, a lot of confirmed ones, and a lot of ones we think exist that we don't know about, because a lot of people are asymptomatic. And we've seen loss of life, but the amount of loss of life is not maybe as scary as we assumed back in April. It's been different than what our projections saw when we first started down this road. And it's something that maybe we're getting a better grasp on. But every day, we're going to have new information here. So is this an accurate statement to say that 99% of people wind up relatively okay after a battle of COVID-19? I think the answer is yes. I think it's a factual statement. Is it responsible? I guess that's more debatable. And is it valuable to us right now in a world where we totally still don't understand all the different nuances that is a brand new virus? I don't know. But that is the other conversation that's been happening pretty much nonstop after the president gave his addresses over the weekend, is that his reference to COVID-19 and maybe trying to calm America, whatever way he does that, is obviously gaslighting and terrible, if you ask certain individuals. I think that we'll all have to take a lot more time before we know the true fallout, the true understanding. It's going to be a while before medical science can tell us exactly what was, what is, and what will be COVID-19. Craig Collins in for Chad Benson. Quick break, a lot more coming up.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege. Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo. Ain't nobody got time for this.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Chad back later on this week. Ghislaine Maxwell. It is being reported all over the place, and the least shocking, I guess, of the reports coming out about Ghislaine and her arrest. She's willing to talk. She's willing to turn on anybody and everybody that she needs to turn on in order to not have her situation be to have it be as good as possible, not bad, compared to, I don't even know what you give her, by the way. And I think this is a conversation that I've had before on this station and also had a bunch of times over the weekend. Someone who's accused of doing the horrible, terrible things that Ghislaine Maxwell is accused of doing, who may also be able to name people like Prince Andrew, for example, or President Clinton, is another one that's been thrown out quite a bit as the ties there are substantial, is surreal to me. I mean, these are as high profile as some of the names as you can possibly get that exist in the world. And what do you offer someone in order to turn on that? The only thing I can compare this to, and it's something I've been doing a lot, is like drug cartels or any of the most serious things we've seen where someone committed tons of crimes, terrible, horrible crimes, and then eventually turns on a kingpin, a boss of some place, and winds up getting almost no actual penalties. They wind up getting to live a life in witness protection somewhere else with a name changed. And I have no idea what would happen to her if she was allowed to be out and in the world. I'm worried of what might happen to her if she's continued to be kept confined in certain places, because you never really know what the world can accidentally what could accidentally happen in the world in which we live. Certainly to people like Ghislaine Maxwell. So I'm scared for a lot of reasons as to what the next steps will be. But she's definitely willing to talk, and I find that as non-shocking as you could possibly find it. Now, there's another thing that I've liked to do throughout the pandemic, throughout the coronavirus and the quarantine, and it's talk about the mask things that make me laugh. The mask game. I think there's a smart mask that exists in the world, one that can even recognize when you get food up your mouth and open for you. I think there's another one that can amplify your speech. So I'm entertained by these things. I'm not trying to condemn wearing a mask. I just think it's funny sometimes. There was a trikini, if you remember. It was a bikini that also had a matching mask option. So you could go the trikini situation. I don't know if that'll be popular even after COVID-19 is hopefully eventually finally behind us. But now brides are wearing designer masks on their wedding day. This is the latest trend according to Fox News. I find it entertaining in a lot of ways. One, because who knew this could be an avenue to make money? There's now got to be designer mask makers. I imagine it's the same people who make things like the dress, but they're out there in the world and they're cashing in on what is going to be, a huge portion of the next few months. And just the fact that, let me get this straight though, so I follow the logic here. You're a bride who wants to have your wedding and you're also going to rock a mask the whole time, but you are going to invite a bunch of people to hang out with you. I don't understand that part of the equation, but maybe it's fine. Obviously, in a lot of places, this would be allowed now, so go ahead. I just love the fact that it's got to be designer. You're not going to put anything on the body, anything into that situation. You're not going to rock any items that aren't fancy as possible. Just think of that, by the way, too. If a bride had a very expensive outfit and then unfortunately had to throw on one of the cheap Target masks. By the way, actually, as I mentioned masks in Target, I am aware that there's a QAnon Karen story out there in the world. I don't know if you've seen this. A woman went nuts at a Target, just throwing stuff. She got mad at masks. I think she shot a video talking about how she was an agent for President Trump. She then got arrested. There's a second video that she took and put on social media where she's confronted by police for just going crazy inside a Target. And, that's not allowed. And she's getting arrested. One of the things she said, my favorite thing maybe she said, is that she told the officers to contact the president because she couldn't tell them a lot of stuff because she wasn't sure what classified information they could know. You can't throw that sort of thing around and hope that it's going to work out. You can't call President Trump, he's going to get me out of this. I attacked a bunch of masks at a Target. That makes no sense. And honestly, to be serious for just a second, no matter how you feel, pro or con in the world of wearing a mask, you don't go to a business and rip all the things down and confront the workers there. Because, by the way, some kid had to clean that up. As soon as you left, some 14, 17, 18, I don't know how old you got to be to work at a Target. Some child cleaned it up for them, though. And that's the worst thing in all this. All right. It's Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in. Man, I just showed I have no idea how old you got to be to work at a Target. More soon.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I'm filling in. Chad is back later this week. President Trump is being covered a lot, as he is all the time, by the media. One of the things he did over the weekend, though, while giving one of two different speeches, this one in Washington, D.C., was talk about that media and talk about the way in which maybe some things are misrepresented, not just about him, but right now about any of our founding fathers, any of the people that we used to celebrate quite a bit more than apparently some people want to do in this very country. Here's President Trump speaking again over the holiday about the media.
Word to those in the media who falsely and consistently label their opponents as racists, who condemn patriotic citizens, who offer a clear and truthful defense of American unity. That's what our people are doing. We want a clear and faithful defense of American history, and we want unity. When you level these false charges, you not only slander me, you not only slander the American people, but you slander generations of heroes who gave their lives for America.
The president will continue in just a second. There's so many conversations that a lot of people are going to say, you can't have that one right now. You can't talk about that right now. That's not the right woke version of a conversation. You got to talk about something else. You can't say things like when we recategorize every single person that's existed and helped found this country as a person that is a racist, a terrible person, and someone that we can't at all celebrate. Well, then obviously I don't know. It feels to me on the 4th of July that something we're used to doing and something that was never contested before is celebrating the history of our country, and that's no longer the case. President Trump continues.
You slander people much braver and more principled than you. You're slandering the young men who raised the flag at Iwo Jima and those who perished fighting for freedom in the Civil War. You slander them. You are dishonoring their great legacy and their memory by insisting that they fought for racism and they fought for oppression.
Now, obviously, as you listen to those statements, you can also kind of hear, as Trump has always chided the media, and honestly even has a problem with Fox News now. If you saw that just recently, I think he told people to go to other platforms, Newsmax being one of the ones mentioned by the president after a conversation showed a CNN poll, and his approval rating or his polling numbers for the upcoming election were not favorable to him. He was mad about that. But you hear the president all the time turn on the media, and in the background of what he's saying about the world leaders or our founding fathers who are now in these odd conversations that a lot of us can't get behind is also the constant attacks on the president himself, and the fact that so many call him racist. So many call him a lot of different words while trying to combat and defeat him. It takes away from whatever the conversation probably should be. That, I think, is his greater message, his overall message to so many of us, is that, and certainly people within the media, is that the conversations we need to have are not necessarily conversations where you just immediately, the moment someone says something that disagrees with, I guess, whatever your feelings are, that they have to be evil in some way and maybe a racist or whatever else it is they could be. All right, let's shift gears to John Bolton, just because I thought this was interesting too. And actually, this is on par with talking about President Trump and his interest in the media. Let's say it that way. John Bolton gave an interview over the weekend where they talked about quite a few different things, including the book, which has been derided by a lot of people. Even the New York Times thinks there's a lot of problems in John Bolton's book. But this is what he said when talking about President Trump and his television watching habits.
Does the president and his thinking get more shaped by television or government advisors?
Well, I think it's a combination of television and listening to people outside the government that he trusts for one reason or another. I think that if you could clock the amount of time he spent actually in the Oval Office versus the amount of time he spends in the little dining room off the Oval Office with the cable news networks of one form or another on, it would be a very interesting statistic.
President watches TV. That's the take by John Bolton. That's a terrible take. That's an interesting take. But he watches way too much TV. He doesn't listen to anybody. He listens to the people that care about him a lot. And then after he listens to those that he cares about and care about him, he doesn't listen to anybody else. I don't know if I truly believe any of this, although I can, in a little way, I guess, come to a closer understanding of just how much maybe the president turns on the TV. That Fox News thing I mentioned a second ago, where he got mad at them because of a conversation they were having midday. He tweeted within minutes of it happening. So he does consume a lot of television, and he certainly has his preferences there. The only real reaction I have to that when I hear that is that he also was a reality TV star and a celebrity before we voted him into office as president of the United States. So I imagine there's some things he's done a lot of his life, a lot of his career, and he has interest in them. I don't know. But John Bolton, the biggest attack now, as so much of that book has been crapped on, is just that Trump is a bad leader because he watches television. Have you ever gotten that fight, by the way, real quick? Have you ever had like a significant other that watched more or less TV than you, and you had to try to convince them not to do it, or maybe to do it more often? I think I watch too much TV for the wife at times. I'm binge watching some shows that I had been watching for, I hadn't seen them in years. Cheers is one that I'm enjoying a lot, but sometimes the wife will come to me and be like, come on, too much TV. I don't know. I'm getting a lot out of it. I feel like I'm learning things. And maybe if they were more responsible television programs, maybe I'd learn a lot of things. All right, let's move on to Beyonce. I love that transition. I love it because this is a real story. A Florida man by the name of K.W. Miller. He's running for Congress, by the way. You can vote for K.W. Miller in the upcoming congressional elections. He says that Beyonce, not really Beyonce. I love this story so much I had to talk about it. You're probably not going to hear this a lot of places because it's crazy sauce. He says that Beyonce's real name is Anne-Marie Lastrassi, I think. My Italian trying to fail me there just a bit, but Lastrassi. So Beyonce's not a black American at all. She's an Italian woman with a totally different name, and she's part of a deep state agenda for the Black Lives Matters movement. To me, this guy, K.W. Miller, is probably somewhat similar to the QAnon Karen story you get. You can take it too far, guys. Let's be totally honest. There's things you can disagree with, things you can want to fight, and then you can go the road of Beyonce isn't Beyonce. She's an Italian woman instead, and a deep state operative. She's not doing a real good job, I think, if she is a deep state operative. But I don't know. Good luck to KW and exposing the the truth there. And good luck to QAnon Karen. If you don't know who that is, I referenced a second ago. She is a woman that had a bit of a tirade happen at a Target. She attacked a thing of masks. She attacked and did a lot of destruction. I'm not sure how much. She touted and celebrated the fact she had a $40,000 gold watch on, a Rolex of some kind. And then she got arrested and said, you got to call the president to the officers arresting her when they did it at her home, I think in her garage, because there was some classified stuff that they didn't know that she couldn't tell them. She had to wait. Man, the world is interesting, but you can certainly go rogue. I would not advise that strategy if I were you. The strategy of call the president. He'll tell you more. I can't tell you anything right now. I don't think that's going to work 9 times out of 9 times, actually. I also saw this story as just other craziness in the news that I found interesting. A guy has been slashing women's tires for a long time in Japan to meet him. He's 32 years old. His name is Yoshido Harda. And I guess I'm a juvenile laughing at something there. But he's apparently been caught for this scheme that he's been doing for years where he has like all the equipment to help fix a tire. And then he comes up to the woman after they come out of wherever they've been and says, oh, your tire got slashed. That's terrible. Here, I can help. Depending on the amount of things he had like in his hands, I would be immediately curious of this individual. If I were a woman and just a random guy walked up to me with like all the necessary items to fix my tire problem and maybe no car or anything in sight. But apparently he tried to do it to the same woman twice. See, the thing is, man, if you're going to try the craziest and terrible version of picking a woman up and this is it, this is your move, you can't do it to the same person 2 times because they're definitely going to get suspicious. Apparently, a 43-year-old woman stopped at a grocery store a few weeks ago, and she became very suspicious when her tires were slashed for the second time at that place. And the same guy came forward being like, man, I can fix that for you. It's terrible what happened there. And then I guess some video footage wound up showing he is the slash and tire rescue guy, and he is obviously in a bit of trouble himself. That's crazy. I mean, it also just makes me reflect on the fact that a lot of people don't seem to think you can have regular conversations anymore. You got to go the road of slashing somebody's tires to talk to them because you don't know what their Facebook page is. That's probably not good. We got to get back to a world where you can just say hello to someone you want to say hello to in the world and hope that, maybe that meeting goes well for you. But yes, I love this dude just because of the fact that he's committed to his terrible, horrible pickup. And apparently he's done it over 1,000 times, which is just insane to me. That's a lot of days of sitting there. You got to be slashing a set of tires every day. I mean, at some point, maybe you reflect and you're like, man, this probably wasn't the right call. But not yet for that guy. Hopefully he changes his habits soon. I got a lot more to talk about. I just wanted to lighten the load a bit and talk about something other than the seriousness that exists in the world. But we got a lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back later on this week. The Supreme Court did rule that faithless electors are dumb. Okay, maybe that's not exactly what they said, but that's the way I read it. This is a court case that's been going on for a little while. Something that was silly that it got all the way up to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court today had to rule whether or not somebody can just make their own decision. The system that we have in place allows for states, obviously, to utilize our electoral college system to vote for the President of the United States. I don't know why I'm starting this far back and explaining this to people. But the way in which that actually occurs is that different people, electors, actually are casting those ballots in response to what the state voted. And there was, I guess, for a lot of while, a debate as to whether or not the electors themselves could just do whatever they wanted. They could just decide, you know what, I don't care about anything that people voted for here or my state said. I don't care who I'm supposed to be representing. I'll go the other way. We call those faithless electors. They have existed for a while, and they do actually cast ballots contrary to what the people in a certain state voted and never really impacted anything. They're usually just a stray few votes. Mostly they're ignored. No one really seems to care about that at all. But now the Supreme Court has said that, a state can certainly force representatives to actually pick the candidate that the state voted for. It's a silly part of the system, in my opinion, that it works out this way. But it's fine. However you actually make it happen, I don't care. The obvious debate, I guess, is that 2 of the past 5 presidential elections were won by someone via the Electoral College and not actually the nationwide popularity vote. But that is something the Founding Fathers were very interested in, providing a voice to every part of our country, and a voice that was comparable to those of the biggest places in our country. Just because a general consensus exists in a place like, say, New York City as to who the next president should be doesn't necessarily mean that place in New York City deserves a vote as strong as it would be compared to a rural community if we just did it by overall population. And so that's part of this whole debate, but it's actually, to me, I guess, probably the secret agenda. The real agenda is just to say that a faithless elector can do whatever they want. And the Supreme Court said, no, it doesn't make any sense. To me, it's a silly one. That should never have gotten that far. It just shouldn't have, because what's the alternative? If they had gone the other way on this, if they said, yeah, no, these people that are actually in the position to cast the official vote in certain areas can ignore whatever everyone voted for that they're supposed to be representing, that makes no sense. Then you'd have a bunch of electors who are just going rogue all the time. Kanye would win. That's actually the way we do it. You know who I'm actually most curious about now? Kanye West. He gets a bunch of his friends to be the people casting these ballots all of a sudden, and you're watching news coverage all night of the presidential election, and Kanye's not getting any of the votes, and then all of a sudden he wins. That's how that happens. And the Supreme Court would have been responsible for making that happen if they had gone the other way on this one, but they didn't, thank God. And they've been all over the place in some of their decision-making recently, so I guess people were not sure how that was going to go. I found another story that I found tremendously interesting, and not just because, again, I'm sort of a self-admitted juvenile at times. There is a hot take and a long article about one of the victims of the COVID-19 world, the world in which the lockdown caused so many of us to work from home. One of the things that might disappear from our culture, according to this writer, the bra. Apparently, a lot of people, and this is the claim, and I'm being serious about every part. I read the entire article, not just because it said the bra might be going away. I promise. It was clickbaity. I clicked on it. I read through the whole thing because I thought the take was interesting. But it boils down to essentially this. Obviously, working from home has made a lot of us willing to be more comfortable in the things we wear. But this same debate, I guess, would hold true, or this same writer might also contend that, like, guys are going to start showing up to work without pants on. Because we all know it. We all know it happened. You know you did it at least once. You know when you were working from home, you had a day where you got up, you had the boxers going, and you decided not to change because you didn't have to. But the whole article is just that. It's the extended furlough, the amount of time where we all had to relax and where people were allowed to dress themselves however they wanted, means that the true victim, the true apparel item that is not going to exist once everything gets totally and completely back to normal, the bra. I haven't seen that. I haven't noticed that. There's a lot of places where people are still going out and doing things, and I think I would have noticed a little more. And again, I'm trying to have this in a serious way, to be as least juvenile as I can possibly be. But I just imagine that if all of a sudden this is an item that were removed, that I would notice that. I don't know. It's just me. That's my opinion. So I love that this writer has this article come out today when, truthfully, a lot of things are already opening back up and been open for a while, because we would have seen stuff like that. But there have been a few. There have been some rogue people writing stories or doing stuff about, like, a guy showing up somewhere without pants on. I mean, I get it. It's going to happen. And maybe it's a thing where you forget. Maybe you get so used to your own system that you're like, you know what, this works for me, and I'm good with this. I actually think that maybe if we dovetail this in a more logical way, we have a different version of the conversation. I wonder if some employers might be okay with the amount of breaks that employees probably took while they were home, if they're getting the same amount of work done. Because we all also know, in a non-clothing related conversation, you took more breaks. If you were at home and working from home, you spent more time where you got up and you went to the fridge, maybe you made yourself a snack. You had a more casual day. And if you became a more productive or as productive of a worker, which I actually think I saw a lot of studies saying you did, then I wonder if some offices might be okay with that. Might be okay with installing Netflix on a TV inside the office and just letting Bob go and watch as many times as he wants to. Because, hey, Bob gets his day done. And honestly, Bob, if you don't want to wear pants and you double your output, maybe we'll be okay with that. Kidding. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for today, hanging out with you here. Thrilled to be here, actually. Chad is going to be back later this week. I want to talk about Kellyanne Conway for just a second, and I want to talk about her because I feel bad for her, actually. In all honesty, I do, because her husband and her have long since not gotten along, and we know about it. Social media talks about it all the time. It's in the world of the news. Now her 15-year-old daughter, Claudia, is in the news a lot of different places. I just saw this covered even in the UK, apparently. Claudia, who's 15, as I said, has posted a bunch of anti-Trump and anti-her parents' videos on social media platform TikTok. She has hit back, it says, on her parents. And I just don't get what that life is like for Kellyanne and George Conway to go home. And do you think they have a rule? Like, is there an amount of time where she's like, yeah, we're not going to talk about politics. Just definitely don't tell Claudia about it. Don't let her, because everybody's allowed to think whatever they want, but inside the family, to have this much disagreement is just kind of crazy. I wonder if maybe this is a survival technique, though, more so than anything else, because she is a kid. She's 15 years old. Her friends at school probably don't necessarily all agree with what her mom does or who her mom works for. I know that young people certainly tend to go a certain way politically, and obviously the world of social media at large has its certain feelings about the president every day. So if you're consuming it just there, if you never dive any deeper than that, you probably believe every horrible thing that's said about the guy. And so she goes to school around all these kids, and maybe she has no choice. Maybe there's no way to get around it. I don't know. Or this is just her feelings. Obviously, George is her dad, and he's got his feelings too. But let's just for a quick second, I'll wish our best to Kellyanne for the world in which she navigates every day when she goes home and spends time with the holiday season was probably interesting in and of itself too. All right, let's move on. I saw this story, and actually, I don't know if this has been talked about a lot, so forgive me, because it dates back to the middle of June when it started, but it's just come across my attention recently, and it's kind of a crazy story in the fact that it didn't take place here. It took place at the University of Cambridge in England, but what happened, and that Change.org was involved in it, is surreal. A teacher, a university professor, put out a tweet in the middle of June that said, I'll say it again, this is me quoting her tweet, white lives don't matter. White lives don't matter. She said that, period. I'll say it again, white lives don't matter. She also says, as white lives, period. And students got upset by that. Students at Cambridge thought that was inappropriate. They started a Change.org petition to get her fired. The Change.org petition had something like 20,000 signatures, and then it was removed from the platform for being a breach of bullying and harassment. According to Change.org, they removed it and said that this constituted bullying behavior and that it was against their terms. However, and I think this was great research done by the people who wrote this article, they went in and looked for similar type posts that maybe weren't necessarily the same group of people that were offended, and posts. The tremendous amount of signatures exist and other calls to action exist that are the opposite and allowed on Change.org. So it's kind of surreal to me in the world that we live right now, and with all the things I've said about the takes on the president and what he said on the 4th of July and what he said on the 3rd of July, and how people have decided that's inciting violence or that's gaslighting the country. And his conversation is almost entirely in the Trump style, which a lot of people can't always handle. But in the Trump style, he said a lot of things about how the country is in a confusing place. Here's the way I would say it, I guess. I'm now paraphrasing, but the country's in a confusing place. Some things that you feel we could obviously all stand against together, like the fact that violence and looting is bad, is not necessarily something we can all stand on right now. And I think that this story out of England that I see and that got referenced in some material I was looking at and some conversations happening about the president is sort of a very good example of how this double standard can be very bad. The double standard that exists right now and the way in which we have conversations about what is and isn't acceptable can be very, very bad. And here is part of that conversation from the 3rd of July from Mount Rushmore as the president addressed a large gathering of people there on the day before, I guess, but in celebration of our national independence and talking about our founding fathers and many other things. He said statements that a lot of people are covering as controversial, as gaslighting, as completely unaware of the world in which we currently live. And let's just hear some of those.
One of their political weapons is cancel culture. driving people from their jobs, shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees. This is the very definition of totalitarianism, and it is completely alien to our culture and to our values, and it has absolutely no place in the United States of America.
Big applause, big cheers for that.
This attack on our liberty, our magnificent liberty, must be stopped, and it will be stopped very quickly. We will expose this dangerous movement, protect our nation's children, end this radical assault, and preserve our beloved American way of life. In our schools, our newsrooms, even our corporate boardrooms, there is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. If you do not speak its language, perform its rituals, recite its mantras, and follow its commandments, then you will be censored, banished, blacklisted, persecuted, and punished. It's not going to happen to us.
The reason I played all that, the reason you hung in for the end there, is because I think there's a tremendously interesting point that's being made. Now, granted, it's being made by a president that a lot of people hate. So there's no ability to hear it, no ability to process it as just a point. But the idea that if you don't agree with people who feel a certain way, that you need to shut up is anti-American. It is. And yet that is the conversation that happens. It happens on social media. It happens everywhere. And I continue to point to the fact that just the existence of social media might be a part of the problem, that you start to get emboldened by the idea that everybody thinks how you think. Everybody agrees with what you say. So if anybody disagrees, well, they're a terrible, horrible person. They're a racist. They're all the things they're accused of being, and then no conversation is even needed. And in this case, too, as far as what is happening in our society and the things like the statue getting thrown into the water in Baltimore and a bunch of other places, just a bunch of different crazy things going on a daily basis, and so much defense by even politicians locally for those things. We're all falling victim to that concept, that simple idea that if you don't agree with someone, you can be punished for disagreeing, and you just can't. That's just not the way in which things are supposed to work. Can we decide to change things the way that they're supposed to go? Yes, we can do all kinds of things with the help of politicians, with the help of different organizations that exist in our world to make change that's better for our society. But that doesn't involve a lot of I don't know. I don't mean to repeat the same topic over and over again, but I just can't help it. I can't help but just be so dumbfounded by the weekend we had, by celebrating the independence of our country, and by seeing takes. And granted, I don't think that the way in which the president articulates his thoughts is always the best way to do it. I certainly don't think his use of social media is always productive. And I think that a lot of times he winds up using the celebrity reality person part of his brain to make some of those decisions. Some of the things he does publicly, some of the things, the ways in which he communicates, I think are because of that long history of being a lot of things other than a politician. But that is one reason a lot of people like him. That is one reason that a lot of people voted for him, is they saw him someone that's coming from the outside and someone that's willing to behave differently. It means he's got a lot of unforced errors, in my opinion. It means he does a lot of things, and I believe the poll numbers. I know the president doesn't, but I believe the poll numbers that the odds-on favorite right now to win our presidential election, granted really early on, is Joe Biden, who, by the way, doesn't talk at all. His plan is to not say anything. Essentially, you could just put up a photo of a shadow and put that out into the world, and you don't even have to have Joe Biden be there. He's, as I think a guest that I talked to last week said, just your generic Democratic candidate. And he's running against Donald Trump, who is obviously a very public figure and one who's not at all shy at getting in front of some cameras and talking. For whatever reason, if shy is even the right word, Joe's not the same. But it's just surreal to me that we can even have a conversation. I can take this much time trying to convince you, trying to convince anybody listening that what's happening as far as the violence is wrong. I shouldn't have to take that long to convince people of that. And honestly, I feel like I'm fighting the same uphill battle that Kellyanne Conway feels like she's fighting every day that she gets home to her daughter and her husband, who both very much hate the president. All right, a lot going on. This is Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. All right, let's talk more about Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, someone who evaded authorities for about 11 months. The FBI took that long after arresting Jeffrey Epstein to locate her. The reason why, a lot of people believe, is her network of well-connected friends and her access to a whole bunch of cash. She actually bought a mansion in cash for $1 million in New Hampshire, which they inevitably found her in and arrested her in. Ghislaine Maxwell knows a lot of things. She's someone that for a long time the FBI was interested in because she was essentially the number two in Jeffrey Epstein's horrible, disgusting, many instances of sex trafficking underage women, for lack of a better way to describe it. She did a lot of coordinating. She did a lot of horrible and terrible things, and obviously knows a lot of the people to be involved. And these are very high profile individuals. It has already leaked, as no one should be surprised by, the idea that she's going to talk. She's going to give as many names, any names, whatever you need in order to reduce her sentence. But her lawyers have continued to express concern that she won't make it, that she will die while in custody, either by suicide, quotes around it, or something else could happen. And one of the lawyers said that she just knows too much. Even lawyers for the victims have actually said the same thing. They're worried about being capable of facing her, which is something the victims very much deserve to do, to go into a court of law and face one of the people that harmed them, that caused a lot of the pain that exists in their lives. It's something that people were very upset they couldn't do because Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. I say again, that's the story that's out there. But Ghislaine Maxwell knows a lot and is going to be talked about a lot. And I think that, in all honesty, it makes tremendous sense to have her monitored as much as possible. After swapping her extraordinary luxury living to a cramped jail cell, people are worried that she's just not going to be capable of handling that. But I think that there's a lot of risk, to be as dark as possible for a second, of people in those situations to be interested in hurting themselves. And there's usually a system in place that can prevent that. A lot of the times there's a system in place that can prevent that. So I hope whatever standard is needed is being taken on a daily, hourly basis to make sure that nothing happens to Ghislaine and that she is asked. And honestly, the other question, and I think this is one that'll be asked a lot, is what is the appropriate amount of forgiveness to give her on a legal platform? How much, if any, sentence does she still get for cooperating because of the individuals that she can turn over? People like Prince Andrew, people like Bill Clinton potentially is another name that's been floated. Even President Trump has been floated as a name of someone who was aware of and obviously knew those individuals. And so we'll see. We'll see how all that plays out. But it's certainly a story that's going to be covered a lot. In other news, Michael Cohen, who's supposed to be in jail. This is another person who's supposed to be in prison but is not. Michael Cohen was at a New York City restaurant. There's photos of him dining out with friends and family. He's wearing a mask. He's doing his thing. He got what probably was a New York Prime steak for $55, according to the very in-depth reporting in the New York Post. And that's not what he's supposed to be doing. As a guy that was released from jail but still supposed to be in it, he's supposed to be staying at home. So that's bold. This is bold in a lot of ways if you're Michael Cohen. One, because of all the crazy things you did to get yourself into the position where you're in jail in the first place. Two, to get out because of the surreal world in which we currently live and the fears of COVID-19, and to be told to stay at home. And then three, to go grab a steak at a fancy restaurant and assume no one's going to notice you. I mean, that's something else. Did he consult with anybody? Michael Cohen is a lawyer, I thought. That's the impression I'm under. And I would assume that maybe he didn't even need any other advice, legal advice on what to do in this situation. But if you were debating it with him, like say you've had this conversation with him, Mr. Cohen, man, should we go out and get a steak? No, you should not. You should be staying at home. You should be serving some form of what you're supposed to be doing, being in jail. And so they're saying that this very public photo may be what caused him to go back to prison. And honestly, this is flaunting a lot of things that you shouldn't probably flaunt in today's day and age. And I just don't get it. I just don't understand. All right, let me move on. I like any story that I believe demonstrates what this is my favorite argument all the time, anytime. It's the thing where I like to have the hottest take. What's better as a pet, a cat or a dog? I love this conversation. I don't care if you like cats. That's fine. We can be friends, but that's the wrong animal. You're making the wrong choice. Yet another story is demonstrating why dogs are better. And here's what it is. A recent study out of Australia demonstrated that a dog in the house will help nurture and raise a child to be more emotionally and socially developed. That is right. Not a cat. A cat might even reject kids. I don't see that in here, but I'm just assuming. I'm just adding things to the University of Western Australia's study. A dog will nurture. A dog will care about. My wife got into a bunch of viral videos during our times where we were just, and honestly, probably just all the time, but during our times of quarantine. And her favorite videos were babies interacting with dogs. Favorite ones. Those are at the top of the list of any sort of video list. You got a little baby, you got a dog, they interact and seem friendly, or they hug and fall asleep. If they hug and fall asleep, that is the best moment that's ever existed, I think, according to my wife. And I agree. And apparently the study they studied 1,646 different households, 42% of which owned a dog. They then followed them for a significant amount of time. This is over the course of a few years to see how well adjusted the children were that grew up with a dog in the house. 23% less likely to have a problem with their emotions and or social interactions than those who had no dog in the house. 30% less likely to act in any antisocial manner, and 40% less likely to have trouble hanging out with other kids. Those are all different things they gleaned from just having a dog in the house. And look, I make this argument somewhat smiling every time I do it because I honestly maybe don't have the level of passion. No, I think I do, actually. Dogs are just way better. But I like that we need arguments like this to come back. You need to have people, and we got to talk about the important things. I'm not trying to say to avoid the important topics, but you got to be willing in a public setting to debate what's better, a dog or cat, and not have that offend anybody, not have that go rogue. I get corrections sometimes from places I've worked where not here, places I've worked to be like, hey, you got to cool it on your cat hate. I can't help but laugh real loud with that. You got to cool it, man. You got to watch out. You're going to get a change.org petition again. It's a cat-dog conversation. It's fine. And then plus, by the way, to each their own. Free country. You get whatever you want. But I guess if you want your kid to be better off social development-wise, 23% less likely to have any sort of emotional or social problems, I guess you go dog. That's just that's the advice that I'm not giving you that advice. These are the scientists. And by the way, I just continue to point this out anytime I find studies like that. Scientists were bored. They were bored for a while. They couldn't do studies maybe the way that they're used to doing. And honestly, we all need a little laugh and a little bit of lightheartedness. So studying how great dogs are, I will always get behind that. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Guess what? Lin-Manuel Miranda and Donald Trump agree on something, I assume. I actually haven't asked them both directly the same question, but they do. The cancel culture is extreme, and Donald Trump spent the weekend bringing it up, and people are upset that he brought it up. But here's how Lin-Manuel Miranda, if you don't know who that is, by the way, it's a guy that wrote Hamilton and stars in it, kind of a celebrity now, certainly woke and certainly on the side opposite the president. But there's a new push after Hamilton was released on the platform Disney Plus. It is now available for people to watch in their own homes after it was really, really hard to get tickets on Broadway for a long time to this show. It is hashtag cancel Hamilton. Apparently, Alexander Hamilton also problematic, also not woke. So I wonder how exactly one Lin-Manuel Miranda will respond to that. But they agree. Lin-Manuel wrote a whole musical about Alexander Hamilton and the great things that he did for our country. Something that I actually find is actually pretty interesting to watch. Thomas Jefferson, quite a few other people represented in that musical. These are all individuals now that certainly shouldn't have monuments or statues, according to some. And absolutely, we should just kind of forget it ever existed. I don't know. That's an interesting take. And certainly I wonder how it works when you can support a discussion until it turns on you, until eventually what you've created, what you care about, and what has gotten you tons of praise in your career winds up being a thing that also is a problem to some. But the Cancel Hamilton movement, by the way, if you didn't know that Hamilton was available on a streaming platform, you must not be on the internet. I don't think you are, because it was all over the place. Everybody was celebrating the fact that it existed, which also to me was very confusing. We're having a conversation on a national scale that's got a bunch of different layers to it and a lot of enemies that exist, I guess, a lot of villains. The biggest villain portrayed by the media is one of Donald Trump. And then we also have a viral musical taking place online and influencing a lot of young people to watch it and love it, as I saw a lot of the takes, but also have the Cancel Hamilton culture. It's very odd. Can you understand that if you're a person who shows up somewhere and desires for a statue of anybody to be removed, even George Washington, who, by the way, also in Hamilton, great role. I should just review Hamilton, maybe. I watched it over the weekend. I enjoyed it. But, they're all in there. I guess we can't watch that then either. I guess you can't celebrate one thing and then show up and demand that a statue get removed. All right, let's switch to sillier things. Let's shift the gears to some more fun things that I saw in the news. One, Elon Musk. Elon, by the way, is supporting the presidential candidacy of one Kanye West. Kanye West recently said that he wants to run for president. He has failed some of the deadline requirements he would need to be on the ballot in some places, an independent candidate. So screw those states. Kanye doesn't even need them all. And I honestly don't know if he's got any team built up or anyone that's going to help him with his 2020 campaign, or if it's even real. There's no indication that it's anything beyond a tweet and then a follow-up tweet by his wife, Kim Kardashian, who supported him via just a flag. And actually, real quick, before I even mention Elon Musk and how he plays into that, and then how he's also selling short shorts, which is a real thing, I don't know if that's actual approval. For Kim Kardashian to just put the American flag and then retweet Kanye running for 2020, I know on its face it looks like approval. It looks like she's being patriotic. It looks like she's saying, all right, I'm in for this with you. But it is just an emoji. It's just one emoji. And then that was it. That was all that Kim had to say. Her husband is going to run for president, and her reaction, I hope that that's all she does. Actually, it would be tremendous if he actually has a campaign of some kind, and the entire time, any appearance she makes, she just holds up maybe an emoji on a printed piece of paper to just demonstrate how she's feeling that day. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But just the fact that Elon Musk is involved in this, because I guess he also threw out his praise more than just an emoji to Kanye West running for president in 2020, he's our Lex Luthor. Elon Musk and or Jeff Bezos, one of them is the supervillain of our time. And maybe nothing better demonstrates the fact that this guy can do a lot of things that the rest of us can't do in Elon Musk. He's selling short shorts for $70. They're $69.42. I think there's actually a zero added on the end there, just because Elon enjoys himself some 420 every once in a while. But Elon Musk selling these shorts, and they sold out. They're red electric short shorts with Tesla on the backside, and they were tremendously popular, I guess. It's a reference to two popular memes that are how the price was built, and then he also founded quite a few different things fun about, obviously he founded the Tesla program, he founded the SpaceX people who are in the news a lot, but just the fact that the guy can go online and sell short shorts and do well, I don't get the world. I don't get it. Do you know anybody in your life who supports a cause, tells you how much they support a cause, then they go home and maybe buy something that's the polar opposite, or they watch something like Hamilton that's just the complete opposite of what they just said? How many hypocrites do you know? I guess that's my question. And I'd love it if you tweet it at us or you tell us somehow on social media. How many hypocrites have you come across, do you know, in your life? Tell us on all of our social media platforms at The Chad Benson Show or even at The Craig Collins Show, because I'd love to hear from you too, and tell us what you think about that. They're on Facebook, I think. Chad's on everything, so please, I'd love it. I just love it. You don't have to out them. I'm not telling you to tell us who they are, but just the fact that you tell me some exist. All right. Also, this is something I enjoy quite a bit. If you're still at home teleworking, if you're a person that's still doing that, if maybe you've been doing it for a while now, you've been working from home for months, odds are 46% of people, pretty much half of all people that are still working from home are rolling out of bed 10 minutes before their workday gets started. 10 minutes. They're actually getting out of bed. 7 out of 10 say that they have hard time focusing on even getting ready for work in the morning. So that, I guess, equates to people just staying in bed. I mean, that is that is something else. I don't know what your daily plan is. I don't know how you plan for your day and like how you get ready to do whatever work is expected of you. But I imagine it takes more than 10 minutes to get your brain right. Even for this show, I have to wake up very early to get ready for this show and to get my energy level right. I got to drink a bunch of caffeine and energy drinks so I can be here for you. I can't do all that in 10 minutes or I wouldn't make it. I would not be able to host the whole segment, I don't think. But that to me is very entertaining. There's a lot of things that might be entertaining about the byproduct of just working from home in general. And the fact that it might be really, really popular. Also, I guess this as a byproduct of the world in which we live. And you define to me how funny you think this is. I think that it can be at times kind of amusing. The extremes 75% of us will go to avoid any and all germs right now. There's a very rational amount of fear as certain things like coronavirus are becoming, the amount of cases are increasing, becoming more and more worrisome, I think, by the day in our country. But there's also maybe an overdoing of the amount of steps you're taking to prevent any and all germs. And here are some of them. Here's some of the list compiled of things that people are admitting they're doing at a far higher frequency than they did before. They're cleaning their phones with antibacterial wipes. You know what? I got to admit, I do that. That's number 10 on this list, and I've done it. I started to get more curious as to just how dirty this sucker was as I hold my phone in my hand as I talk to you. And so, yes, all right, fine. I was trying to make fun of this thing. We're one in, and I do that one. Wipe down every surface in your house. People are doing this a lot more often than they used to. I think this probably only makes sense if new people are coming in and out of the house, or if new items are coming in and out of the house on a consistent basis. I mean, you should clean it. I'm not saying stop, but I think probably the over wiping down of the house is something you probably don't need to do. Wiping down shopping carts. I saw this the other day. I went shopping and the grocery store was proud of the fact that they desanitized the cart. Or they sanitize it. Man, that'd be weird. They sanitize the cart. They remove anything on it, I guess, that could be left from the person before you. And I see a dude, like, that's his whole job now, is scrubbing down carts. That's all he's doing. And I watched a woman get handed a cart from him, take a new cleaning wrap out of her own purse, and re-clean the entire cart in front of the kid. I wonder how you feel if you're that kid. You're like, I did all that. I just did the whole, why did I do what I did? And I don't know. I thought it was mildly entertaining, to say the least, that she would go for a whole second round, a second shining, and whether or not he thought that was okay. You walk in the road in the middle of the street to avoid people. All right, fine. That's something I might have also done a time or two, and something certainly my wife likes to do. You got to, I don't know, if somebody's like coughing a lot, I don't think you want to stand next to them, but a lot of people are doing that right now. I don't know if you've seen that, but I've seen it, and obviously I've done it. Wiping door handles is something people are doing quite a bit more of. Crossing the street if you see people walking anywhere near you, which amuses me a lot. Going grocery shopping alone is a thing a lot of us are doing just to make sure that, I guess, and actually, okay, I have one reaction to the fact that that's number 4 in this list of things people are doing far more often. It probably makes sense if you go shopping alone as opposed to go shopping in a group, because it makes you less of a threat, I guess, to the world at large that you're going into if you're going alone and if you happen to be sick. But it's not protecting anybody at home. I have that conversation with my wife all the time when I'm like, oh, I want to go to like this store or grab something. She's like, all right, you go alone. Well, it doesn't help her. If I go alone and get sick, it's probably both of us that wind up getting it. So I don't know that the shopping alone tremendously makes sense to me, but whatever. Avoiding touching your face, which is the hardest thing you ever have to do. And people are still doing it. They're doing it en masse right now, trying as hard as they can when they go out. And the face mask, I guess, might help or hurt that attempt. But it is difficult. Number 2 on this list of things people are most commonly doing to extremes because of the fears of COVID-19, not making any contact with a delivery person whatsoever. Being about as unhuman as possible. When you see a person put a package on, you're not even like communicating with them, nothing. Just no version of thank you. Leave the door shut, scrub the thing down when they get outside. And the number 1 thing people are doing, and they're doing it a lot. And actually you're told to do this, so it's fine, but maybe they're probably doing it too much. Washing your hands for at least 20 seconds. The amount of people that admitted that they're doing it several times a day, every single day. And even if they don't go out of the house. For example, if you're in the house all day, you probably don't have as much risk as if you're going out and being a part of the world. But that's something, the number 1 thing that people are doing. And so I guess I'd love to know that too on social media. How many times have you washed your hand today? Just go ahead and tell us on all of our social media pages. How many times have you washed them? You should wash them. I'm not saying don't. Follow all the recommendations that our health professionals tell us we should follow. But, if you're taking out the sanitizing wiper, if you're taking out the hand sanitizer every 10 minutes, that's probably a tad too much. All right, this is Craig Collins filling in. A lot more coming up on the Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I enjoy at times to talk about the different surprises that exist in the world, the different businesses that might be doing super well. Because of the current situation, the current life in which we all live, the fears, rationally so in a lot of ways, of COVID-19 and the rise in COVID cases throughout the country. One Dallas-based company that is really killing it is the plexiglass sellers of the world. These are people that I guess got $30,000 worth of orders for sheets of plexiglass for different schools in the area, so that when your kids go back to school, grade school, high school, what have you, there is a high likelihood that they will be protected, or at least I guess in Dallas, they'll be protected by a sheet of plexiglass between them and the teacher, similar to what you see, I guess, at the grocery store when you go in there. That'll be something else to go into. I wonder, actually, my first thought in that is, so like a kid, right? It's probably hard for them to process right now all the changes that took place, depending on how old they are, depending on how obvious the changes feel, or if they're so young that maybe they feel like this happens every few years. The world in which we live right now and why certain things happen. I see a bunch of kids outside wearing masks that seem to be taking it very seriously and understanding what the parents are saying as far as the value in doing it. But it seems also like there's a lot of confusion. Like if we're out, and maybe also a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity. If you're K through 12 and you're doing things like showing up at class and everybody's got a plexiglass kind of box in front of them, do you wonder what you should and shouldn't be doing as a kid? And how do you have that conversation with little ones to tell them what does and doesn't make sense in all of this? And honestly, how effective a plexiglass barrier is going to be if it's only situated on a desk. Do you have the point where you have the full plexiglass wall, and on one side you got the teacher and on all these other sides you got the students? Or do we just continue to do homeschooling? I have no idea what the right plan is, but something that has surged in purchasing throughout the country in an attempt to get ready for the upcoming school year are these protective barriers. Purdue University, which purchased more than 5 miles of plexiglass, told Yahoo Finance that it plans to place the plexiglass in areas where face-to-face interactions typically occur. That would be a lot of places at that university, including classrooms, hallways, offices, bookstores. Is it going to be kind of like a maze? Is like the world we live in the near future going to be sort of like a maze you walk in and you got to navigate it? And also, like, can't we leave things on surfaces? Just my question. I'm just questioning. I'm not trying to disregard. I don't want the Twitter mob to come after me. I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness, but like, what level of this makes sense? I've always gone personal bubble. Like, if we really want to push technology in the right direction at a time like now, we should all have our own. We should have our own bubble. We should be able to decorate it however we want. And maybe a la NASCAR, you get some imaging on it and you go around that way, because I get it. I'm not trying to, I feel like I have to say this like 65 times. I'm not trying to take away from whatever is the rational fears. I'm just trying to understand the world that it sounds like we'll be seeing in the future and how we navigate it best. And truthfully, how you tell kids about it, how you articulate to children why these things are occurring right now, why they should or shouldn't be occurring, depending on what your opinion is of that, I guess. And then when it changes. I can't imagine going through this and being like 8 or 10 years old, as opposed to a man in my mid-30s, kind of, trying to process this for the first time. It would be surreal to be doing this and then just always remember that. Like as a kid, when I look back on the memories I have, they're almost all silly and not at all serious. But there would be no way that kids don't look back on their childhood and remember coronavirus, remember COVID-19 and that year in which everybody had plexiglass. And then do we even go away from that? In all honesty, like, do you take it all out? Or do you just leave it and clean it forever? Just have it be a thing as we continue to maybe worry about that kind of stuff. All right, let's shift gears. A lot of other stuff going on in the news. I want to talk about this. Colin Kaepernick, he's a guy that's going to confuse me this year. And he's going to confuse a lot of people. A lot of people are not going to be confused, actually. They'll be very opinionated and decide one way or the other what is right and wrong. But Colin Kaepernick is trying to play in the NFL, right? And the NFL sells a product. The product, in a way, is the players. It's the game they play on the field and the brands that exist that the team can sell to their fan base. Colin Kaepernick, obviously, years ago was no longer a part of the NFL, and probably to a certain extent that was because the message he was trying to convey, he was doing it in a way that was upsetting a lot of fans. I think there were a lot of teams that were worried that the negative impact Colin Kaepernick would have on their organization as far as fans go would be a lot. And the fact that Colin can tweet out on July 4th that this is a white supremacist holiday that he won't partake in, to paraphrase what he said, that's going to be trouble for a lot of organizations to, I don't know if they'll get behind that message. I certainly know that they'll prop him up in his ability to say and think whatever he thinks, as all Americans have that right. But I think a lot of fans would be upset with that idea. And I think there's a lot of football fans that might not want a player that says something that strongly worded to be a part of their team. So he'll be interesting for that reason and many others. All right, got to take a break. Craig Collins filling in. This is the Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in for you today. Chad is back later this week. Nightmare in New York is the headline, a few different places. There were 250 shootings in June in New York compared to 97 in June of 2019. That is up, obviously, a lot. There is also an increase, 51% in shootings in the 616 in just the last year. Why is this all happening is the question a lot are asking. And a big part of the conversation probably deals, as rightfully pointed out in the article I have in front of me from the Daily Mail, of all places, that the conversation about law enforcement, the conversation and maybe even some blue flu may be contributing to what's going on in a lot of areas, in Chicago, in Portland, in Seattle, in places all throughout the country. There's a push against police officers right now that at times is making them incapable of doing their jobs. Certainly the case in Seattle. And when police are not doing their jobs, what we have seen, and this is just a fact, this is a simple fact. So anything that you hear from this point on, I would like to just mention that these are simple truths. You can disagree with them or agree with them, do whatever you want, but it's true that violence goes up, that crime goes up. If you don't have police, if you don't have people responding to and keeping law and order in areas, bad things happen in greater quantity. That is a fact. Are there ways maybe that people could discuss finding an alternative to police, I guess, but that's not what we currently have. If you currently go out and just yell at police officers and or do worse than that and beg them to get out of your area, you actually haven't come up with a solution. That you know what? I want to point that out too. And I don't know if this is a fact anymore. This is probably an opinion. If you're a human being who wants change in the world, usually the way in which you desire change is to come up with what should be in place and then recommend that to people who can make it happen. What you don't want is to just stop the things you disagree with and have no alternative. You don't want to go out and say, okay, this has to go away, defund the police, get rid of it. And then they ask you, well, what are we putting in place? I don't know. I mean, we gotta do the get rid of. We don't even do that in our normal lives with anything. Like, say you want to change your diet, for example, and I get it, very poor analogy, but I'm just trying to make an analogy for decisions we make in our own daily lives. If you want to change your diet, you don't just sacrifice the food that you were eating that you don't like for nothing. You don't just say, all right, well, I'm done with eating these junk food items, and so now I'm just going to starve. No, you replace items. You probably plan it out. You talk to yourself a bunch. You're like, no, I like carrots. I like them. I thought in the past I didn't like them, but I promised myself I like them now, and I'm not going to have cheeseburgers anymore. And then you make that change. That's what you look for in the world in order to have things happen. And that's true in a very simplistic way in that example I gave and just in general. So this world in which we currently are in, and places like New York having headlines where surprising and horrific numbers of shootings and violence take place every single weekend now, and the just amount is going up and up and up, you obviously want to find a solution to that. And I think the solution, like the president does, involves involves handling the issues the way in which we were comfortable handling the issues. Having police officers be a part of the solution and not all be treated as if every single one of them is a part of the problem. This is one of the many topics that the president has touched on in recent days. While speaking at Mount Rushmore, he said that the mob that exists at times, the mob that is doing things like pulling down statues and throwing them into water, is not the America he knows and not the America that he thinks a lot of us would like to see. And I get it. Again, if you have problems with Trump or if you don't, and I think people on both sides of the aisle at times disagree with a lot of the way that this guy handles himself and some of the ways in which he talks, and yet these simple points that he makes over the weekend are not the gaslighting things that you've heard that they are.
1776 represented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph of not only spirit, but of wisdom, philosophy, and reason. And yet, as we meet here tonight, there is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, to fame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children.
That is the statement you're probably going to see most places. That is one of many statements the president made in two different speeches he gave on the 3rd at Mount Rushmore and on the 4th of July. Here, let's continue a little bit more from President Trump. And I will try to dissect and paraphrase as I hear these comments, because I'm not sure that all of these are the gaslighting that everyone else says they are. And again, I say that after reporting to you the amount of violence that's going on in a lot of places throughout our country right now. And to just ignore that exists, to just have a conversation where we don't mention that there's a ton of violence going on every single day is as irresponsible as anything anyone else is being accused of. To not reference the fact that things are more dangerous right now is not the right way to have this conversation.
Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, to face our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud.
Okay. I've played two of the more controversial, air quote, statements from the president on the 4th of July. One's that Tammy Duckworth, of all people, a name that I didn't think I'd use as much today, said he shouldn't have even talked about. He shouldn't have even brought up those issues on the 4th of July. He should have stuck to a conversation about how scary COVID-19 is and maybe talked about the Russia stuff that's still in the news and going to be in the news for a while and not talked about that. In New York and in a lot of places in our country, we've seen an unparalleled amount of violence, an unparalleled amount of danger. And we're seeing this because of a push against law enforcement officials and against those that are serving and protecting the communities that they live within, a vast majority of them serving and protecting every single member of the community that they're in. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. That is true. And so when he says those things and when he addresses those issues, I can't envision any other president on either side of the aisle, honestly, even another Republican president saying the same thing and being treated as if he's gaslighting the country. For saying those things, I just can't. And I'm not trying to sound like 100% a Trump fanboy here. I don't get these comments. But here, let's shift to Tammy Duckworth for just a second and hear what she said. She was asked in an interview if George Washington is one of the statues that should be taken down, if people can be mad about our country celebrating George Washington, one of our founding fathers. And she at first tried to duck the conversation, as I'm telling you, Duckworth ducking. I just made that up by a mistake. But she tried to Duckworth the conversation before eventually answering the question. And I can't believe her answer, but let's hear from her.
I know that you support changing the name of military bases named after Confederate leaders. But there are leaders like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson who were slave owners. And some people are demanding that their monuments come down, too. So in your view, where does it end? Should statues, for example, of George Washington come down?
Well, let me just say that we should start off by having a national dialogue on it at some point. But right now we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and one of our countries that are opposed to us, Russia, has put a bounty on American troops' heads. What really struck me about the speech that the president gave at Mount Rushmore was that he spent more time worried about honoring dead Confederates than he did talking about the lives of our American.
I gotta stop. The lives of our
130,000 Americans who lost their lives to COVID-19.
Yes, the president took the stage for the 4th of July celebration and didn't talk to the audience for several minutes about how horrible the numbers are from COVID-19 and how we've lost American lives. He did not talk about that. He talked about the founding of our nation instead. That's crazy sauce, right, Tammy?
Pandemic. What are we going to do to push Russia back? And instead, he had no time for that. He spent all his time talking about dead traitors.
Dead traitors. That's all he spoke about was dead traitors the whole time, even though he talked about people like George Washington. That's dead traitors to Tammy Duckworth. All right, let's see if the interviewer can try to get back on the message, the topic of whether or not George Washington is problematic.
True, but George Washington, I don't think anybody would call him a traitor. And there are moves by some to remove statues of him. Is that a good idea?
I think we should listen to everybody. I think we should listen to the...
I just punched my computer. I totally missed the stop for the thing, and I just hit. I don't know if you heard that. We should listen to everybody. Everybody who has any opinion. People think that George Washington is a person we shouldn't celebrate. He kind of helped gain our freedom in the first place. What do you think of that, Tammy? Well, maybe. I mean, it's worth discussing. It is? It's worth talking about? Really? In other news, just shifting gears because I can't take any more of that. I can't understand. I get if you don't like somebody. I get it. I get if the current president is somebody you hate. But it doesn't mean you just abandon all thought. You just abandon all ideas of what should and shouldn't happen in our world because you don't like the guy. Anything that if you hated somebody you worked with, right? But they came to you with an idea that made sense, do you just tell them they're wrong and walk away? Or if they have a good idea, if they have a point that's valid, do you actually hear it at all? Because right now it seems like we don't hear any of those points at all just because of the person who makes them. All right. The Washington Redskins were in the news for considering changing their name. This is something they've long been asked to do, and they finally are doing it. This actually came from pressure from FedEx, who owns the stadium, FedEx Field, and quite a few other things going on as far as that team is concerned. Now the Cleveland Indians are in the same boat. They have announced that they will work to determine the best path forward with regard to our team. This is to potentially change the name of the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins to be things that are more okay, more woke in today's current world in which we live. And I don't have a developed opinion on this other than the fact that I don't know. And I think this is a bad argument for some to make because they don't totally understand it. But where does it stop? So if this happens, if the Redskins change, if the Cleveland Indians change, if we take down a statue of Columbus, if we change the name of Ohio from Columbus, Ohio to something else, if we do these things, when is it enough? When do those changes feel like they're enough? Or how far do we go till you get to the George Washingtons of the world or the New York Yankees? Are the New York Yankees somehow problematic? Do we find a way and then we change that name? When does it stop, I think, is the big frustration a lot of people have. In other news, actually, as far as baseball is concerned, quite a few players have come down with COVID-19 on a majority of the teams. I think at least 31 players and 7 staff members have tested positive for COVID-19, a rate of about 1% in baseball as they get closer to restarting. The Yankees saying they want to see fans in the stands at some point. So many things going on in the world of sports and honestly, all of the world, of course, in general and here in our country, that is now even the right time to talk about things like the changing of the name of the Cleveland Indians? Or should we be more worried about whether or not Cleveland Indians have coronavirus, whether or not the players are safe to play this year? Is there ever too many topics to handle at once? Maybe there shouldn't be, but I wonder if it is. I wonder if right now protecting the players and making sure they're okay would be tremendously more important than reshaping the names of the organizations while the season is trying to happen. Do you change them mid-season too? And by the way, do you throw out a vote on the internet? Because if you're just going to listen to every single push for every name of every organization to change that the social media mobs are going after, do you then give them the option to change it? Because the internet does not have a great track record when it comes to being able to vote on things. They typically vote for the funniest, dumbest, most disrespectful name they can possibly come up with whenever they have one of those debates. McDrunkface was the name of a bar. Recently, a bar wanted to change its name, I guess for a similar reason. They felt like they weren't woke enough, and Drunky McDrunkface was the winner. So are we going to see the Cleveland Drunky McDrunkfaces take on the the Yankee, I'm sorry, I'm not woke enough team in 2020? I don't know, because that seems like the road we're going down, and the road that the president points out doesn't make sense, and yet he's told by a lot of media he's gaslighting and trying to start some sort of crazy amount of infighting in our country. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I need to take another break because I need to calm down and also find some sillier things to talk about because we can't be serious all the time. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Boys, give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers.
One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins. I love asking my producer, Phil, for information and then realizing that I'm the idiot who got it all wrong. I saw this story about the Beatles. The Beatles in 1976 were offered a bunch of money for a reunion in order to obviously perform together, get back together, what have you, even just as a one-off, and they said no. The reason why they said no is that I guess a guy was going to wrestle a great white shark as the opening act. And the Beatles are like, we don't do that. We don't open for shark fighting dude. But the reason I say that I just wasted Phil's time is that I asked him what $250 million would be in today's numbers, and he was quick to act. He got that information for me right away. $1.1 billion. I'm always tempted to do the Dr. Evil voice, but I'm just actually doubling the money because the $250 million that Ringo Starr says the Beatles were offered to reunite back in 76, that's actually already adjusted for inflation. So sorry, Phil. They were offered $50 million though in 1976 to get back together. And the one problem was that a dude was going to wrestle a shark before them. They couldn't have fixed that situation. Nobody involved in this could have been like, yeah, it's the Beatles. Can we tell Shark Guy to do it another night? I know he's not going to have maybe the same amount of people show up for just Shark Fight without Beatles after. And by the way, like, what does that take to get that kind of an event done where you got the most famous band in the history of bands performing live, and before it, you got a dude who's got to fight a shark inside a water tank of some kind, and then you got to move everything? I mean, and God forbid that goes a bad way. That would be a very awkward way to then try to have a show. The Australian diver's name was Wally Gibbons. He would, quote, fight to the death with a 14-foot, 250-pound shark in a lagoon. That's just the kind of stuff he'd try to do. And they wanted that before the Beatles. Like, no other opening act. How would you also feel if you're any other band at that time? Like, man, they don't think we can open for the Beatles, but they think this guy can. And that's what put it all, that's what put the kibosh and everything. $250 million in today's numbers. And I know the Beatles didn't need the cash to get back together. I think I would have let them wrestle the shark, and then I still would have performed the show, as long as obviously nothing bad happened. In Texas, I also saw this story. It amused me a lot because this is the wrong way to go about it, gentlemen. Texas decided to protest the fact that bars aren't open by dumping a keg on the ground. These were guys in El Paso that they just decided to open up and pour out all the beer in a keg. Hopefully it was stale. Hopefully it wasn't even beer. This better have been a trick because you don't let any good soldier fall. This is not the okay. But they said that obviously the world in which they live right now doesn't make any sense to them. So as part of the demonstration, a keg of beer was opened, poured down Cincinnati Street to signify all of the alcohol bars are not able to sell right now. Tax-free beer running down the street, just like in the old days when they did the Tea Party, when they threw tax-free tea into the harbor, is what one of the guys said when the news organization caught up with them. Nah, man, I don't think it's the same thing. I think that it's a tad different, and in all honesty, I wish that I had been there, because I would have been the guy at the end of the line where the beer was rolling, trying to scoop some of it back up, because you don't let it fall. You got to do everything you can to not let a beer get wasted, my friends. So that's not an approach I would ever condone. One last thing real quick, and just to demonstrate how bored people are in the world, there's a woman who's gone viral online because she's recreated movie scenes with her hamster. That's right. She's created in-depth scenes. A lot of different, I guess, pieces of art go into it. She shoves them all in the hamster cage and then takes a photo on social media of her hamster acting out a movie scene. That has gone viral in 2020. All the conversations, all the things we have that are serious topics, and one thing that's tremendously popular with young people on different forms of social media is a tiny hamster pretending to be all different kinds of movie stars. Happy, happy world we live in right now. All right, Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.